meeting to order. First call to order is Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If there is any public comment for the Finance Committee meeting, I would be happy to entertain that now. Any public comment? Any public comment going for the last time for the Finance Committee meeting? Hearing none, we will move on to the next item on our agenda, which is discussion and possible action for the financial management summary dated April 4th, 2022. For our normal routine, I will turn it over to Mr. Bucci, and he will walk us through the narrative, and then we can follow up with board comments and questions.
Thank you, Kristen. During the month of March, we continued with our exercise of scrubbing all of the accounts that we have from July 1 forward. Obviously, what we've been endeavoring to do is to try to mitigate the shortfall that we know obviously we discovered months ago, which resulted from insufficient budgeting. Last month we had actually gotten the budget shortfall down from $800 and some odd thousand dollars down to about $512. Unfortunately, this month it's creeped back up again, but I will say that the driving factor behind that is a spike in energy. We've put in an additional provision for roughly $50,000 in our budget to cover a couple of things. One, the cost of propane to run the buses has almost doubled. It's up about 72%. We are working with Santa Buckley Energy to try to see if we can mitigate this. We've exceeded the 42,000 gallon allotment that we had for the buses this year, which apparently was set in stone last year. So now we're paying retail prices at roughly $2.12 a gallon. So we've increased that. We've also increased slightly the budget for the remainder of the year for heating fuel, although I will say that in both of these categories, while we may have increased the provision to be conservative, if we get a break in the weather, we may do much better than that. Now on the positive sides, and by the way, the increase from last month only went from 512 to about 541, and again, there are offsets to the increases that we had. We continue to struggle with paraeducators and getting enough paraeducators into the district on a for-hire basis. We contract with them through an organization called Delta T. So when you look at the budget gains, you'll see that in the category for non-certified staff, there's roughly a $335,000 surplus. Within that, though, is $54,000 worth of funds we pay and that appear in account 330, which is other professional services. So in the narrative, when we were going through, first of all, I look at any account where it starts with other. And when I looked at the account, I found in there a number of things. One was $54,000 of payments for paraeducators. Another was we had budgeted $80,000 for legal fees, and we are over $140,000 in legal fees. And what I mean by legal fees is legal fees for representing the Board of Ed in routine matters, legal fees for representing the Board of Ed in special ed matters, as well as fees we pay during the course of the year for matters relating to the arbitration of the teacher's contract and various other expenditures. So there's a $60,000 overage in that category from that. There's also an overage in that category from the time prior to my arrival when you were paying for an external interim business manager, and those monies were not originally in the budget for the year. So I've jumped around a little bit from non-certified staff to professional services. On the positive side, in employee benefits, we scrubbed a couple more accounts. One was tuition. Apparently, the tuition benefit that's offered to our teachers is not being fully utilized this year, and we'll probably pick up $10,000 on a one-time basis. I don't think we want to assume going forward that that's going to repeat. But for this year, given that it's already April, it's unlikely we'll spend the full allotment. Another category in which we were able to mitigate some of this year's expenses was in unemployment compensation. We received a credit related to COVID for unemployment compensation, which we have been using to pay the unemployment compensation claims during this fiscal year. So the money we had budgeted for that for this year, we believe will be sufficiently covered by this credit. So we took out the provision, remaining provision we had for unemployment compensation. We picked up about $20,000 or so there. Again, we don't expect that to repeat for next year. So what we're really trying to do, on the one hand, is to just identify, given that it's April, how we're going to really come out by the end of this year as we close in on it. And on the other hand, I just want to make sure and be cautious about suggesting that, you know, these savings would translate forward. So I spoke about energy. Infrastructure, for the most part, is pretty much running on target.
Did you speak about transportation?
I'm sorry?
You went from energy to infrastructure, or can we talk about transportation?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Sorry, we're jumping around. It's
Oh,
kind of
transportation, yeah, well, that's on the next page. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, so transportation, last month, I took a $100,000 credit against our current year transportation for routes that were not run, as well as combined routes. All-Star has offered us, as they did other school districts, and I commented on this last month when I phoned in, that they use a 45% credit factor. They contend that they have to still pay for the buses, they still have to pay for insurance, they still have to pay for non-driver related costs, and therefore what they're only offering a 45% credit against those routes. I took a $50,000 credit against transportation from what we anticipate we're going to receive in total on the excess cost recovery grant. Now, we have received to date $551,000 in cash. This mimics last year's first receipt, which was $549,000. Well, last year we received a total of $675,000. So all in all, what I've put into this budget right now for credits are $625,000 against tuition, $50,000 against transportation. I still think we're going to get closer to $700,000. That means there may be another $25,000 out there. I haven't really changed that projection. I just, based on the cost estimates that I've received from the special education department, we may very well receive another 150. So, but I want to hold at 25 in abeyance because I understand we've, you know, just had another recent placement, and while we're not going to spend anywhere near what that placement will cost on an annual basis, it might cost us another $20,000. So we're leaving a little wiggle room in there. You know, special education, as far as tuition and as far as busing is concerned, is obviously always a moving target. You know, this year it's $844,000 over budget. When you take out the $625,000, it brings it down to roughly, you know, $200,000, $210,000 and change in that category, which is pretty much where we thought it was going to be. It was just that we had that last minute adjustment last year. Again, I keep bringing this up, but it is a valid point in that the last minute adjustment to the budget last year was completely charged up against the tuition budget. Supplies, equipment, adult education, administration, those categories remain unchanged. They're largely remaining unchanged because we're in a freeze and we're not spending any more money than we absolutely have to on anything. And I wanted to just go back and make one comment about the infrastructure. Tim Connor's done a great job trying to contain our costs and to mitigate the problems that come up. Things break. Trying to find low-cost solutions and ways to try to, you know, get us through this year. and hopefully put us into a better position next year, so we can start over with an infrastructure budget, while not generous, will allow us to, continue on our way of keeping things up and running.
Yes.
Is there anything that we are deferring or not doing that would be a safety issue for our students or the facilities?
Is there anything that,
We're deferring or not doing that would create a safety issue or?
no,
something?
absolutely not. No, what I mean by, I'm talking discretionary things, okay? I'm talking, where there's a wish list and every school has one.
Just being very conservative.
Yeah, I just want to make
Yeah.
sure we're not.
No.
No, we would never jeopardize.
Those are my overall comments, obviously. Please ask.
Can I just make a comment? Just regarding propane, have we looked into the state contract that we can use for propane? Would that be advantageous?
We haven't, Ansonia, Derby, Seymour, and Beacon Falls were all in this sort of compact where we've been collectively contracting in and buying our propane through Santa Buckley. We all received an email the other day saying that they were in the process of trying to come to us with some solutions. None of us among the districts I just spoke about have really gotten our heads wrapped around what's going to happen for next year. We do have some propane available there to run the buses, but again, my feeling is, at the rate at which it was running, there are not, that's more of a longer-term solution than a shorter-term solution, and that may be something we have to look into when we go to contract next year. What Ed Santa told us, point blank, was, don't contract for propane right now. It's unstable, the situation in the world is unstable.
Are you familiar that the state procures and political subdivisions are eligible to be on that state contract, and that state contract expires in 2024, so it might be a viable alternative.
We
I
can
appreciate
also
it.
look at that and make sure that it might be a better plan to do.
It's usually whatever the price is. plus
Right,
differential.
yeah,
So
and
it
they
might be an
usually keep it
alternative.
Thank you very
steady.
much.
That
Yeah.
Santa knows for
Certainly
sure.
will run that down. I mean, any suggestions on how we can save on energy are always
Yeah,
welcome.
that's a good.
And could you re-articulate what you had said? So we contract in this consortium, or by whatever name with the other districts, and we had an allotment for this year, and we've already exceeded that allotment. So could you talk a little bit about how, I certainly know that you were not here when we actually put in for the allotment, but it seems to me that we should have a surplus this year because we ran less buses.
Well, I can't speak to how they came up with 42,000 gallons.
Uh-huh.
I do know that last year, obviously, they didn't use 42,000. On the other hand, what happens is you actually pay for your allotment. When you sign one of these contracts and you contract for $1.12 and for 42,000 gallons, you pay $1.12 for 42,000 gallons. I don't know where it went off the rails. I looked at the cost of bus fuel in the past, and it just doesn't seem to be, in fact,
And they can give us documented records
Yeah.
of all of
how
that.
much- Of how much propane.
E-
we use
exactly.
a year.
Right,
I didn't bring that
distribution.
this
They,
schedule.
they definitely have ongoing records of all of that.
Yeah,
And that would be good to look at as well.
And these buses were, I can't remember if it was last year or the year before, it was only recently that they actually were all converted to propane.
And again, much like the other project that we've talked about, the promise was made that this will save you money in the long term. That was
Well,
something
it actually-
we were excited about as a board, that, okay, great, if we convert from gas to propane, we will save money.
All things being equal with rates, yes. I can tell you that it was on track to save us some significant money before, A, we ran over our allotment, and B, which, again, which to a certain degree, there should be a reasonable calculation of X number of buses times X number of miles, and what they use in terms of fuel and how does that translate into gallons. you know, I haven't done enough of a dive to figure out, like I did with employee benefits, to figure out exactly where it went off the rails. But,
Yeah.
you know,
And could you say again, how much money we're talking about in terms of, or potentially talking about? We don't exactly know how much we'll pay, right, for what we need for the remainder of the year. Or we do actually, you said 212.
right now, it was, the last bill we got was $2.12. Now,
But overall in the budget, how much of a gap is that causing?
well, I put into the budget right now, actually, the budget for the year
Yeah, for the rest of the year.
is, we're only projecting $101,000 in total expenditures for the year. But here's the thing. We were only at $59,000 before year-to-date through February. It lags a month. What I had to put into the budget was a $42,000 encumbrance because I was expecting last month we were not going to spend the $102,000 that was in the budget, that we were actually going to have a savings, and that was part of where I thought we were crawling back.
Right,
Now I'm back to where we're going to spend what we had in the budget to begin with.
I see.
So it's not actually over budget, it's just that, to your point, we were supposed to save money, and we're not. When I look at energy, and I was looking at electricity, heating fuel, and the bus propane in one category, I was taking the plus from propane and adding it to the negative from heating oil in the past month, plus the electricity, and saying, okay, all things being equal last month, I was expecting we were going to come within $5,000 of the budget. Now I'm saying that we're probably going to be roughly $48,000 over budget in terms of the total energy cost. But one of the things that I looked at earlier was the run rate at which our electricity bill usage, the actual usage, is running. Now, we were on a usage basis seeing a decline roughly across the board, something like 15% in the actual year-over-year electricity bills from Eversource. The problem is the spike. So if you take where we were up to this point, and you say, okay, maybe we were running, we have, last year at this point in time, there was still $158,000 worth of bills to be paid in April, May, and June, and then the accrual, because again, that runs a month behind too. If you take that $158,000 and you say, okay, we're saving 15%, and you go backwards, and you get it down to about $115,000, and then you add 12 or 20% to that number, you're right back to your $150,000 number again. So if we don't see those kinds of spikes and we do continue to see the reduction in the kilowatt hours, we'll be okay, except that I did want to provide some additional funds for the potential that even if we have reduced kilowatt hours, we're going to have increased rates.
No matter.
So, you know, what I'm trying not to do is set unrealistic expectations on where we're going to wind up, okay? I'm being a little conservative, okay, on the energy because I don't have a crystal ball. On the other hand, it might turn out that there's 30, 40,000 at the end of the year that we didn't really need. And again, I don't factor in like things like that school is scheduled to close on June 21st, and so therefore we're not going to have any electricity for the last 9 days of the month or things like that. You know, yeah, I mean, the lights still go on. There's, even though last year, for a lot of the year, for instance, we weren't heating, we were still maintaining a minimum heat in the buildings. And the buildings were probably still as energy efficient or non-energy efficient last year as they were. So, you know, you really can't say, well, the buildings were closed, so therefore we didn't have any expenditures. That's not the case. You know, again, we've gone through, and the problem with trying to compare year over year is last year was somewhat of an anomaly as it relates to at least energy and utility usage and things like that.
As was the year before.
As was the year before
Right.
as well. So I'm really trying to look at what's the progression this year and how are things going this year. And again, you go, if we had a stable environment where it was the same temperature all the time, I could look at November and look at, April and pretty much come up with the same number.
Yeah.
But, it's very difficult because I don't really know what the energy efficiency of these buildings are,
Okay.
and, what it ultimately does to us.
And this will provide a baseline, at least this year, but again, with the increased cost, it's just up and down.
Yeah.
And as far as the electricity usage, this should be a good baseline year in terms of what benefit we are getting in the reduction of our kilowatt hours as it relates to the addition of the solar panels. And hopefully, that'll give us a better ability to project as we go through next year.
Except for the fact that we've already had to project, right? So it's actually next year's budget, not the next, but the next year. That we could actually hope to be accurate and
Well,
based on.
the way
on
we
true
kind of put
information.
it together is, that when we revisited the budget on this, on the 17th of March, we used a factor of 12% over where we thought utility usage was going to be 22, 23. The town, I believe, used a factor of 20%. I hope we're right, I hope they're wrong, I don't know. But I do know that, all things being equal, you're right, I mean, we're really not going to get a true sense of this. I'm looking forward to the presentation from JCI on how they see this whole solar project sort of washing out at the end, and where they really think we're getting an appreciable benefit on these, from these solar panels in each of the 3 schools, because I'm sure it's different. I'm sure you're not going to get the same benefit in every school.
Right. Do you have any questions? Do you have any questions, Chris? No? Okay, thank you for the detail behind tracking where we'll end up at the end of the year, and explaining and sharing that we can do all we can, but the month's bills come in and we have to make adjustments at the end of, as the bills come in, we have to adjust. So it has not gone unnoticed how difficult it is to track and predict, so thank you. I would entertain a motion to recommend to the full board the approval of the financial management summary dated April 4th, 2022. Thank you. Motion by Chris, second by Beth. I know that. All in favor? Aye. I do not have a chairman's report, except to say that since there are people coming in, which is awesome, the public hearing is April 7th. I believe it's at 7 o'clock in this building, in the auditorium. I'm looking at you, Chris. 6 o'clock at Town Hall. Leave work early, everyone. It would be awesome if people could come and support holding our school budget as it was recommended and accepted by the Board of Education, and allowing the taxpayers of Seymour to come out and make a true vote without having their voices be interpreted before they actually get to have a voice. So I'm always in favor of letting a budget that has been responsibly prepared go directly to the taxpayer, and that's what we hope to affect and make happen on Thursday evening. So support is encouraged, and okay, I'll just say begging for it. That's the extent of my report. Madam Superintendent, anything to share?
I would just like to say we've been looking very diligently through all the line items. We've been looking extensively in every area that we can cut. I don't know much more areas that we can go there. I think we're down now to the bare bones framework. I did several hours Friday working with Mr. Bucci line item by line item. We're down to basically about as low as we can go, and not affecting seriously programs for our children. So
Thank you.
that's what I did try.
And for continuing to dig into those numbers.
I'm trying to do my due diligence in every way I can.
And I just appreciate it. Moving on to item 5 on the agenda, there are more folks in the audience, so if anybody has a public comment that they would like to share with the Finance Committee, it would be welcome at this point. Any comment, public comment for the Finance Committee? All right, going last time, any public comment for the Finance Committee? Hearing and seeing none.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion by Chris, second by Beth. Meeting is adjourned.
meeting to order at 7:39. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag All right, before we get started, we'll just go around the table and introduce everybody. We'll start down on the right with Tyler.
Tyler Lang, student representative.
Karina Weaver, student representative.
Stefan Bahuniak, board member.
Shannon Levy, board member. Kristen Bruno, board member.
Beth Mysteriak, board member.
Chris Champagne, board chair.
Edge Camillo, board secretary.
Kristen Harmeling, chairman of the finance committee.
Leanne Doherty, board clerk.
Dr. Susan Compton, superintendent of schools.
Dr. Chris Boyle, director of pupil services.
Salvatore Bucci, business manager.
All right, thanks. Okay, first up, I am going to ask Dr. Beth Smith to come on up. And tonight we have an award for our distinguished Fred. Yeah, that's it. Perfect. Our distinguished friend, there it goes again, Mr. Fred Stanek.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Dr. Beth Smith, and I'm a recently retired public school administrator and a member of the Connecticut Association of Schools Awards and Recognition Committee, commonly known as CAS. It's truly a pleasure to be here this evening to present the Distinguished Friends of Education Award to former longtime Board of Education member Fred Stanek. And Fred, I'd ask you to come up and join me here this evening. I'm going to deviate from the script just a little bit. Don't get nervous. When I said I'm a recently retired school administrator, I actually retired as former interim superintendent and director of special education with the Shelton Public Schools. One of our board chair, Kathy Yosh, is here this evening. And Attorney Stanek represented us. So I know Fred. So I just want to tell you about my experience with Fred, and I'm sure you had the same experience. I found Fred Stanek to be kind, to be honest, to be gentle, to be humble. Fred is quiet, but don't let that, don't mistake his quietness, because he takes it all in, and he's a great listener, and then he will tell you exactly what's on his mind and offer you the best advice. Fred Stanek is a role model to everybody. He's a friend. He's a role model to parents, to students, to community members. He's a man of integrity, and I say this about very few people, but Fred Stanek is a true gentleman. So I am thrilled to be here tonight to present this to Fred. The Connecticut Association of Schools established the Distinguished Friend of Education Award in 1983 to honor individuals who selflessly applied themselves to expanding educational opportunities for students in our state. We host numerous recognition programs each year, and the Distinguished Friend of Education Award is by far our most popular award. Every year we receive dozens and dozens of applications for this award from schools across the entire state of Connecticut. And it's extremely difficult to narrow down the pool and choose one person. But this year, of course, was no exception. And the fact that we chose Fred Stanek for this award from such a large and competitive pool of nominees gives testimony to the great value and significance of his efforts and to the breadth and scope of his impact in this community. In addition to being our most popular award, this is also one of our favorite awards, as we get to see amazingly unselfish and dedicated volunteers get the recognition they deserve, but they never seek. Through his 30-plus years on the Board of Education, as a board member, as a mentor, as an advocate, as a classroom and committee volunteer, Mr. Stanek has afforded a wealth of resources and opportunities to Seymour students, to staff, to families, and to community members. And he's done so without any expectation of gratitude or personal benefit, modeling to all of us that the simple act of serving others is its own reward. On behalf of CAS and our member schools. I congratulate Fred on this achievement, and it's a much-earned recognition, and I'm so grateful to be here to present it to him. And now I'd like to turn it over to Dr. County.
Thank you so much. I would also like for Marissa Feige to come forward and Jim Freud, also Vonda Tenza. They have some words that they would like to make a few remarks in regards to this award and why Mr. Stanek deserved this award. Truly, we are honored tonight to you being named a distinguished award winner. Truly, this is quite an accomplishment, and what you have accomplished for Seymour Public Schools over the past 32 years, as well as community service, has been extraordinary. You truly are a Seymour, and I know that Karen Proctor also made that same statement, truly in the difference that you have made and your relations and working with the Board of Ed all of these years, and most notably is what you've done in improving the academic quality of Seymour Public Schools, as well as the other board members, in making sure that high-quality programs always a focus on student achievement. And your standards have always been set very high, and I know the Seymour school community and the staff and all of the people totally appreciate what an impact and what a legacy you've made, but also for the community service. So at this time, I know that Jim Floyd has some words that he would like to read from the letter, Mrs. Feige from her remarks, and I know Mrs. Tinsley wants to say something as well.
Over the years, Mr. Stanek has contributed to his legal skills and clarity of thought to enhance the community of Seymour through the support of our schools. It would be difficult to capture all of the contributions to our community. However, I'll attempt to in a brief synopsis of some of what he has done to support Seymour schools. Please understand this synopsis is limited in scope, and it is not all inclusive. Mr. Stanek has served on the Board of Education for 32 years. During his tenure on the Board of Education, Mr. Stanek had various positions over time. He served as chairperson, co-chairperson, and secretary. As an attorney, Mr. Stanek made sure Robert's Rules of Order were followed in board meetings and corrected its members if needed. Mr. Stanek always advocated for the children and faculty in our schools. During board meetings, he would make sure educators and students were publicly recognized for their accomplishments. Often, he would announce an accomplishment of a student or faculty member, or he would recognize the passing of a retired teacher who served the community. During these recognitions, he would share a personal story about the person being recognized. Over the years, Mr. Stanek participated in the establishment of several awards and recognitions supporting our community. He continues to participate in the selection of some of the award recipients. In 1984, he helped establish the Distinguished Alumnus Award, which annually recognizes Seymour graduates for their contributions to society and the local community. The alumnus who is recognized has the opportunity to address graduates during their graduation ceremony. He has served as a chair for this committee for 28 years. In 2000, he helped to establish the David A. Brummer Excellence in Education Award, given to an individual devoted to making the Seymour schools the best that they can be. An individual who assists in the education of the children of the town of Seymour in an outstanding and exemplary manner. He has helped with the selection of this recipient for 22 years. In 2001, he helped with the establishment of the John J. Gallagher Memorial Athletic Award, given to an individual who has assisted in the support and development of athletics within the schools and the community. He has participated in this for 21 years. And in 2003, he helped to establish the Vincenta Covesa Excellence in Teaching Award, given to a retired teacher or a current teacher employed by the Seymour Board of Education, who has displayed extraordinary effort on behalf of the students during their career. He has helped select this recipient for 19 years. In 2010, he assisted with the development of the Thomas J. Petruni Memorial Education and Environmental Award, given to a Seymour Middle School student who has displayed a strong interest in environmental education or activities involving the environment and its preservation. He has assisted in this for 12 years. And most importantly, he established a perpetual memorial scholarship, in memory of his loving wife, Karen Stanek, who passed away in Mr. Stanek has continually advocated for the improvement of music and arts programs in the district. Through his support, the number and variety of courses offered at the high school have increased. The number of teachers has doubled from 2 to 4. During the growth of the arts, the student populations had decreased by approximately 40%. He clearly understands the relationship between intellectual development and the arts. Over the years, Mr. Stanek has been directly involved with the high school students and staff when his wife Karen was a teacher in Seymour High School. During this time, they formed a very productive mock trial team, which had won 2 state championships in 1983 and 1984. His knowledge, experience, and coaching of the team helped them gain these accolades. Mr. Stanek, in support of Karen, also served as a student council advisor when helping during school dances by bringing the faculty chaperones food, and I believe it was Roseland's Pizza, which is very fine pizza. But this simple act of kindness was really appreciated by the faculty and the staff. Mr. Stanek has supported the high school both as a Board of Education member, parent, and community member. His supports included serving on the Capstone Development Committee to develop a capstone-like project to best meet the needs of our students. While participating in this committee, he encouraged open opportunities for the students. He helped give our students freedom of expression without limiting their ideas. In 2007, we participated in a reform of graduation ceremony, one which was loud and boisterous to one which was formal, respectful, and appreciated by the entire community. He had participated in our dropout prevention committee, whose efforts and changes helped to raise our 4-year cohort graduation rate from the mid-80s to 90% annually, over 90%. Having worked in Seymour since 2004, I cannot think of an individual who has done more for our school community. It is with these thoughts that I gave Mr. Stanek my highest recommendation for this distinguished recognition. Mr. Stanek, on behalf of the entire high school community, congratulations.
Please come on up to.
Yes, please join the
Please
group.
join us. I would like to say Mr. Fred Stanek has been involved in education for over 30-plus years as a board member, the longest-standing Board of Education member that I know. At each meeting, Mr. Stanek always takes a moment to recognize someone special for what they have done in Seymour. He has recognized the students, the staff, administrators, and the distinguished community members. So tonight, it is a pleasure to recognize you, Mr. Stanek. You have influenced, participated in, and shared your knowledge and professional expertise with our finance, policy, curriculum, technology, transportation, athletic, health, facilities, and transportation committees. You were instrumental in creating citizenship awards for fellow educators and members of the community who have made a difference in education and who support the children of Seymour. You are a visionary, a motivator, and an individual devoted to making the Seymour schools the best they could possibly be. You value community service and your participation in public schools. As an attorney, I appreciated how you always come to our schools regularly and shared your passion for government, leadership, responsibility, citizenship, and the law. I love how you spoke on career days and every chance that you can. And I am so confident that you have inspired many of those students to also go into the field of law and become lawyers there, too. You've always participated in the Seymour Parade,
truly an honor, humbled and honored by receiving this distinction this evening. I'm just amazed that I was chosen among all the nominees. You know, I received notice that I was receiving this award on March 8th. That date was 3 years after the passing of my wife Karen, who passed away on March 8th, 2019. And that was a very tough morning for me. I received notice of this award, and I knew that Karen was looking down, smiling upon me. It was just a wonderful experience for that day. As I said, I'm almost speechless. There's a few things I do want to say. Karen and I very much valued education. She is a teacher, myself as a community member. And we worked hard to try to work with the community in advancing the needs of education. There's a quote from President Lincoln, recently quoted to the Board of Finance. Upon the subject of education, I can only say that I view it as the most important subject which we as a people can be engaged. Karen and I live by that. And I think this community lives by that also. I want to thank the Connecticut Association of Schools for this award, and in particular, Dr. Smith, who's here this evening, and Karen Pachter. As Dr. Smith said, I had the pleasure and the privilege of working with her in her roles as Special Education Director and Interim Superintendent at Shelton as her counsel. It was great to work by her side. I also want to thank Mrs. Tenza, Mr. Floyd, Mrs. Spivey for their nominations, Dr. Compton for her support of the nominations, and the entire Board of Education and the community. And I'd like to recognize a few people. My children are watching this evening. I would not have been able to participate in the community as I did have in this Board of Education without their understanding of my being away from them as children and other family events. And of course, that goes with respect to Karen also. I want to recognize also Kathy Yolish, chairperson of the Shelton Board of Ed. I've gotten to know over the past few years. She often tells me I'm her guardian angel. If she has a dilemma, she'll turn to me and we work it out together. My good friend Jack DeCosta is here this evening, Commissioner of FERA, and my adopted sister Sheila Glazer, two very close people to me. My childhood friend, Harvey Kaplan, teacher here at the middle school. And I'd like to thank Nicole Claritas Ditria and Madam First Selectwoman Emery Dragones for being here this evening. Thank you. I said more than I could. I am speechless. Thank you all very much.
We also have Mr. Standing, don't go anywhere yet. Representative Nicole, as First Select Woman, also has something to present to you tonight.
All right, Fred, don't sit down. We get more stuff.
The Board of Education is going to be bored with my presence.
Well, Fred, there's nothing I can say that everybody else hasn't already said. Your accomplishments and what you've done for and in the town of Seymour are like no other. Your dedication to our town, your dedication to our students, and the betterment of their education with you and your late wife, Karen. And I'm sure Karen's looking down, cheering you on, saying that, of course he got it. No one else should
Internship extends its very best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. Given this 4th day of April 2022 at the State Capitol, Hartford, by Martin Looney, President Pro Tem, Matt Ritter, Speaker of the House, and Denise Merrill, Secretary of the State. Come on up. What an honor it is to be here. I felt since I dealt with you and Karen, living in the same neighborhood as you and Karen, I not only see you as a fellow board member, but also a friend. My long life has been enriched by those teaching for under you and Karen, speaking to her every day about the street of love, and you as people care about government. We are truly blessed to have you in our lives, and I'm truly blessed to serve on board with you. And with that, I have a proclamation from the town of Seymour for you. Honoring Fred Stannick. Whereas education is a transformative force with the power to uplift our children to become more compassionate, curious, and confident. And whereas the Connecticut Association of Schools Distinguished Friends of Education Award honors individuals for outstanding service to education. And whereas in his more than 30 years on the Board of Education, Fred has dedicated himself to the advancement of the Seymour schools and the betterment of our past, current, and future students. And whereas Fred's legacy is carried in the success of each of our young scholars. And whereas Fred serves as the standard by which we measure ourselves as public servants, leaders, and most of all people. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Emery Jones, first selectman of Seymour, join the grateful town in extending our sincere congratulations to Frederick Stannick for earning the 2022 Distinguished Friends of Education Award and thank him for his tireless service to our young people. I am Emery Jones.
Thank you so much.
All right, next up, I think you ladies are back up again for Lauren Reed, our Assistant Principal of the Year.
Yes, Mrs. Reed, would you please come up? I don't know if you've noticed tonight on the agenda, but this is very special tonight. We have 3 people here who are receiving state awards. One person, who's the 3rd person we're honoring tonight, is actually going on for national recognition as well. But I just want to mention that I think it is so wonderful for the Seymour School District and the Seymour School community to have Mr. Stannick and Mrs. Reed, and also, as I always call Coach Kathy, in regards to having 3 state winners. It's pretty amazing. So I just had to mention that since you're up next. It's so unique, and this is such an honor for you as well. She is going to be competing for the national also in Louisville, Kentucky in July, and I plan on being there. On this wonderful award, and I have a citation for you from myself, Senator Eric Berthel, Senator Kevin Kelly. Lauren Reed, 2022 Connecticut Elementary Assistant Principal of the Year. Being named the State of Connecticut's Elementary Assistant Principal of the Year. As an assistant principal, you play a critical role in the education and development of our youth. You demonstrate the level of commitment to our students and staff that is necessary to be a strong leader, giving service to our community and contributing in all that you do to the overall profession of educational leadership. The entire delegation joins together to thank you for your service and honor your accomplishment. Given this 4th day of April 2022, Martin Looney, President Pro Tem, Matt Ritter, Speaker of the House, and Denise Merrill, Secretary of the State. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, and last but not least, is Kathy Federotes, not only Connecticut's Volleyball Coach of the Year, but also she's going to the national awards, or I hope you are, at least I remember our conversation we had a few weeks ago.
Yes, she is. She is definitely competing, and to be one of the 7 finalists in the nation. This will be from July 19th to the 22nd in June in Des Moines, Iowa. So I'd like for Mr. Floyd and our athletic director to come up as well, Ernie. This is very important. This is something, again, to have the Connecticut Coach of the Year. You will be receiving, Kathy, in June, you're going to be receiving a citation from Nicole and also from First Select Woman, and also from receiving a plaque. Both you and Marjorie both will be receiving plaques. It's just a certificate tonight. But again, I know that Mr. Stavello will want to say something, being a former athletic director, his love for athletics, and what you have meant to the Seymour School District. Just unbelievable, the state championships and what you have accomplished. And you've made a difference in the lives of our students. And you've definitely grown some of the best athletes in the state of Connecticut.
And my only regret is my daughter didn't get to play for you. I know. But otherwise, many other of our athletes were lucky enough to play for you and once in a while you used to tell me that was a good luck charm.
You certainly were.
So
Whenever I saw you in the stands, I knew we were going to win.
Okay, that's cool. Congratulations. To win more than one is an accomplishment. And you deserve it. So here we go.
Ernie, come over and get my picture.
Kathy is more than just a volleyball coach. She's an outstanding math teacher as well. And at the high school, she's one of the first teachers there in the morning. Students actually start arriving to school 20 minutes earlier before we're technically are allowed to let in the building to spend some time with Kathy Federotes here. We know it's for her tutoring and support, but she always makes herself available to her students. She has high standards. She's tough. She has high expectations for the girls on the court as well as the students in the classroom. She is what I would consider one of our best teachers, and she's just outstanding all around. You're welcome.
Coach Cannon, that during my first week coming to Seymour after I was officially hired, it's my first week, and I remember opening the gym door and we were having volleyball practice. And I saw the drills and what was going on, and I thought, oh my gosh, what a wow coach. This woman is unbelievable. And that you truly are. And I said many times, you could coach university level, any level that you would want to coach. I was so impressed with you that day. I thought, gosh, is she ever a coach? A great one at that.
I actually want to share a different perspective on Coach Fed, because we work together as the athletic administration at the high school. And as Mr. Freund said, there's kids that come in extra early, spend some time with Coach Fed every day. And I'm actually one of those people that does the same thing. We meet every morning. And just working alongside Kathy at the athletic administration level, I've learned so much from her. I couldn't think of a better person to win this award. I couldn't think of a better person to be coaching our kids. And we're very lucky here in Seymour to have her. And I'm very lucky to have her
who I've had with me for the last 20 years. So without Heather Yablonsky, I'm not sure where our program would be, but you have to surround yourself with really good people, and I've been lucky to do that for 23 years, and hopefully I got a few more left in me.
All right, I think we'll take a 5-minute break if anybody wants to take pictures. Okay, item 3, student reports. Turn it over to our student reps.
So last month, Student Council made gratitude cards for first responders and hospital workers, and Hope Club also collected leashes and pet food for the Seymour Animal Shelter through March 1st through March 22nd. And they also held a Ukraine relief fundraiser where they donated medical supplies to be delivered to a Ukrainian church in New Haven by April.
On March 18th, the school wore red in support for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. A penny war competition also took place. That benefited this society. The Performing Arts Club at the high school had a concert on March 25th. It was very successful, and they did really well performing. For sports, March 19th was the first day of practices for the CIAC Spring Sports at the high school, and this past Saturday, April 2nd, was the first day of games. There's not a ton of information from sports because the season just started. And May 7th is the junior and senior prom at the AquaTurf.
Thanks. Any questions for student reps? And we had from what I understand, I wasn't able to be there, amazing performing arts concert last week.
I got to observe the practice rehearsal on a Thursday. I know First Select Woman attended it on Friday night, but it was absolutely unbelievable. I stayed in the auditorium for about 2 hours, Mr. Floyd and I, and it was just remarkable, the talent. It was amazing. Very proud of their kids.
Anyone? Any questions?
I would echo that. I was able to attend the performing arts performance in support of the seniors especially, and it was talent and it was hard work. Definitely the hours of practice, and it was clear that that club means more than just that performance to those kids. So yeah, I would commend everybody that participated in that. It was a great night. I had to keep Mr. Bruno from singing along to my so it was a lot of fun.
All right. Anyone else? I will tell you guys can go, but
Then Kristen would yell at me.
then somebody would yell at me. Guys, what's that? All right. So item 4, public comment. Just please remember that this is not a dialogue between the board and the public, and let's try and keep the comments at 3 minutes. Do we have any public comments? Any public comment going twice? Any public comment 3 times? Okay, public comment is closed. Section 5, reports. We have our committee meetings and the special ed enrollment information. Do we have any questions on these reports? Okay. Item 6, consent agenda. We have our minutes, nutrition report, financial report, information on the ESSER grants, and the reopening plan.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion by Ed. Do we have a second? A second by Mrs. Bruno. Any discussion or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. Nothing in item 7. Item 8, discussion and possible action. The first item up is the appointment of a permanent board attorney. We had the RFP meetings with myself, Mr. Schmello, and Mrs. Mysteriak, and we are here to appoint a new permanent attorney.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Ad hoc Legal Services Committee to appoint the firm of Burcham and Moses as the permanent board of education, effective immediately for a contract term of 3 years. Correct?
That's correct.
I'll second that motion.
So we have a motion by Beth, second by Ed. Any discussion?
So I'll just comment, just just so the rest of the board, the committee, as Chris mentioned, met several times. We developed a criteria. We conducted interviews with 3 of the 4 attorneys that did submit, and they were all very well qualified, but ultimately we made the decision to move forward with Bertram and Moses.
And if I may add also too, is that through the chair, is that we are going to have this firm do both special ed also. When in the past we had a different firm for special ed and a different firm for other board needs, but this time this firm will do both for us.
Any other questions?
I just want to say thank you for the process. I think you 3 were very thorough. As I always say, let the process work. The other 2 firms were excellent as well. I did the follow-up calls to explain that they did also a really good job, but the final selection was with the other firms.
All right, if no one else, call for a vote. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion passes 7-0. Item 8B, future marching band program at Seymour High. I see we have Mr. Demko in the audience. Mr. Demko, Dr. Compton and I met, I think, 2 Mondays ago.
Yeah, I think it was about 2 Mondays ago.
And I think Rich is going to give us an overview of the plan for the marching band.
He has quite a vision, and just remember, it's still to build upon the programs that already exist here in Seymour, but he's got quite a vision of how we can move forward and build on what we currently have, but go to the next level.
Trying to figure out how to get this on play. Just went that way. All right. Can everybody see the PowerPoint here?
Nope.
No? All right. Let's see. Is that good for everybody? Cool. All right. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Richard Demko. I wear many hats in this town. I've been involved in music all my life. It's always been a very passionate subject for me. I started playing when I was 5 years old. About 6 years ago, when my youngest was born, I decided to make some drastic moves. Went from working in the operating room 65 hours a week down to running my own business, which revolves around music. Now I run a record label, and I do a lot of songwriting and things like that. And when I first moved to Seymour, I was shocked to find out that Seymour did not have a high school marching band or concert band program. You know, because that, to me, went to Mass High School. We were one of the top 4 Class 5 marching bands in the state. I just pretty much assumed that every high school had this type of program. So over the years, I've kicked the idea around, with a few from the Board of Ed a few times and the previous superintendents that we've had, and there hasn't really been too much interest in it. So this year, after hearing from Dr. Compton that she is into music and has a degree in music, I said, gee, this is great. Maybe we could do something. So I put together a little bit of a presentation to see if we can drum up a little bit of support to start a program here. So, just basic Wildcats marching band idea. So the idea would be to create, develop, implement, and grow a high school marching band program with color guard and concert band. The need, so the middle school has an extremely strong band program, and I think by offering students an opportunity to grow their musical education in high school, it'll help contribute to more culturally diverse and well-rounded students. They'll have pride in the school, pride for personal accomplishments, a sense of belonging, being into a club. They could get scholarships, maybe. They make lifelong friends and memories. It give them a positive, safe environment. And we would be promoting an arts-friendly environment to new and potentially new Seymour families. It allows students to express themselves in a different kind of way musically. The band would be able to perform at public events, parades, concerts, thus being a great offering to the people of the town. It would bring music into the homes of many. It would teach students who are interested in playing an instrument a new skill set. It does align with the STEAM program. It teaches discipline, and it will make Seymour High School more competitive with surrounding towns that have band programs. So the immediate plan, so to speak, if things do end up working out the way that they need to, would be to recruit 8th grade students who are currently in 8th grade, along with freshmen, sophomore, and junior students who would like to join the program. And we'd be able to promote the program in the schools throughout town, through school websites, emails, social media, etc., because building the program is pretty much going to be the foundation of, we can't do this if we don't have interest from the students. Would be to offer the program as a credit class for 1 period a day, plus 1 night a week during marching season, which is pretty much the standard, I guess, throughout the state. We would develop the students' playing skills. We would develop the students' drill skills. They'd be able to perform at high school home football games. They'd be able to perform at local parades. We'd do maybe 2 concerts a year at the high school. And it would start more of like an exhibition type band until certain milestones are achieved, which could potentially take anywhere from 4, 5, maybe even 6 years, depending on the success of the program. Then from there, then they would go into a long-term plan. So we would try to grow the program by enrollment, and we would grow the program by skill level. And by doing that, we'd be able to incorporate more advanced sections and instrumentation into the program. At that juncture, they'd be able to compete in local and regional field shows. Throughout all of this, we'd be maintaining a booster club to continue to support the program. At that juncture, we would need band uniforms to compete, and also bus transportation to get to state and regional events, and then potentially offer a large band trip to one of the major competitions each year at one of the larger amusement parks in the area. Now, this is all a long-term plan. Obviously, this type of stuff doesn't happen overnight. I think everything needs to start small and build the program. But this is kind of where I would see it going if it was to be successful. So the big question I'm sure that everybody has is, how are we going to pay for this? It's a big thing. So I think this is probably going to be the best way to get this off of the ground, because the startup year is going to be the most financially difficult. And I'm estimating, and I got this all laid out in slides, as you'll see, about $20,000 to purchase equipment and sheet music and supplies. So I think startup funding would probably be best to be achieved independently, aside from the taxpayers, by getting together sponsors, doing some fundraising, employing that booster club that I talked about in the slides before. The field staff, along from the band teacher stipend and the field coordinator's fee of only $2,000, the field staff would be primarily volunteer positions. Like for the drumline coordinator, I would step up myself and help coordinate the drumline. I also have a friend from high school who would be interested in helping coordinate the color guard for the first few years to get this program off the ground. To circumvent the high cost of uniforms, which is the biggest cost in this entire thing, and they're estimated at around $400 a piece. I think in the first few years, students would be able to purchase track suits for uniformity. I think that's the most cost-effective way until we get to that level of competition later on, many years down the road. To make sure that everyone wants to participate, I think some of the funds that we would be able to raise, we would start up a sunshine-type fund for students that may not be able to afford their tracksuit or their instrument. The way that would work would be, we would purchase an instrument from the sunshine fund for the student to use, and then it would be returned at the end of the school year and kept in the instrument locker or instrument closet to have for future students who may be interested in playing that instrument if they can't afford it. There's going to be a few yearly costs, which is why fundraising has to occur during the year. Some of those items include purchasing the field show music for the year, drumsticks, mallets, the addition of new flags and poles for the new Guard members. Those are some of the things that happen every year, which is why fundraising throughout the year is important. So maintaining the funding, after the startup costs are covered, the band pretty much generate income through various fundraisers like bake sales, can and bottle drives, revenue from their concerts that they'll put on twice a year, hopefully. And then, of course, anyone who wants to donate personal funds. Another idea would be to hold a gala towards the beginning of the school year as the yearly kickoff for the program. The Booster Club, once again, they'd be established to help plan the gala and other fundraising activities and to support the program throughout the year. Accounts, I think, probably 401Cs or, some type of nonprofit situation for this. And any of that money that's left over carried over year after year. So that way, every year we're starting with something in the account to add to continue to maintain the program. So this is just pretty much an idea, and I've talked to a couple people about it already, and we haven't even really done anything because, we need to discuss it through all the proper channels first. But just a few people that I've already talked to about it, we've got about $3,500 in pledges, and that's maybe only through about a half a dozen people. I think GoFundMe would probably be the preferred outlet to solicit individual donations. I personally like the Donors Choose platform, but unfortunately, because I know Donors Choose is very widely accepted in the educational community, but unfortunately, their vendors are very specific, and some of the equipment we need, they don't have that type of vendor. And then corporate sponsor levels will be established for businesses who would like to support the program, and their commitment would be noted on a banner and, probably something else to recognize the sponsors. So the startup cost breakdown, as I said before, I priced all this out already as to what we need to get going. So I went through, and thought of, okay, what are some of the items that we're going to need to get going? So we're going to need some drum equipment. I'm not going to go through every single thing here, but essentially we're looking at about $7,100 worth of drum equipment just to get going. We're going to need some low brass equipment to the tune of, $8,800. So if you take the drum line and the low brass, now we're up to $15,900. Other things we're going to need, sheet music scores for marching every year. It's $1,000 a year plus whatever it's going to cost, copy, paper, and ink to distribute that to the students. Concert band score book, that gets replaced usually every 4 years with an update. So that's $500 every 4 years plus copies. Holiday score book every 4 years for, the holiday program that they might put on for a concert. Same thing with patriotic score book. There's going to be some miscellaneous things in there like drumsticks, mallets, tape, that stuff every year. It's like $250 worth of stuff. Then you got Guard supplies. That all depends on how many people join the Color Guard program. The first year would obviously be the highest cost, as the Guard equipment is going to be reused every single year, and we'll be adding to it every single season. So with this, you figure 5.5-foot poles are about $12 each, blue and gold flags, $12 each. Drill rifles, about $34.95 each. So when we take the instrument total at $15,900, other items totaling $2,070, the Guard supplies, I'm figuring maybe 15 people would be a reasonable thing to just kind of project to start up. So going based on 15 students who would be interested in doing Guard, we're looking at 10 poles, 10 flags, and 5 rifles. It's about $414. You get that $500 in the Sunshine Fund for those who want to participate that might not be able to afford it. And we've got a grand total of about $18,884.75. So I think setting a fundraising goal for this would be about $20,000. And I think based on some of the pledges that we've had already, I think it's going to be very attainable to hit this, to get things off the ground. So the field staff, like I said, I'll volunteer my time to work with the drum line as somebody who's willing to help out the guard once that happens. But we're very fortunate to have one of the best field show coordinators in the Northeast, who I spoke with a few weeks ago, who agreed to help develop the drill and formation part of the program. He's got ties to Seymour, and he's only charging us a very small fraction of what he would normally charge schools to put together these award-winning field shows, essentially. His name is Bob Finley. He's the father of Selectman Bob Finley. And he has done some amazing things. He was actually our field show coordinator back when I was in high school in 1994 through 1998, and he did an incredible job. And normally he's up there around like $10,000 to $15,000 for a program, because he's kind of asked me the same thing. He's like, I would love to work with Seymour to develop a new program. He's like, I'll do it for only $2,000. It's like, all right, cool. Let's talk to everybody and see what we could do. And with that, that kind of brings us to the end of the presentation and some questions. I guess I'll take some questions and, things that I might not have the answer to. I could defer, to Dr. Compton. And if we don't have an answer in general, I can find out and we can get back to everybody.
I think this is something that we can start out thinking about. I think he's done a wonderful job with his vision and basically what truly are the ingredients of building a marching band program. I think, too, one of the desires for the town has been with the high school just being able to also march in parades. I think building upon the talent of our music teachers at the high school, as well as the music teachers here in the middle school, as well as the elementary, that we can build the base, the framework for this foundation. He is willing to volunteer as well as others. They would be under the volunteer list in the program. I think just looking at a drum line, just very quickly, because I'm not going to take much time, we'll come back with this and visit in more detail after we talk with Mr. Floyd and the music teachers and so forth. But I would just like to mention, as far as the drum line, after witnessing the talent that I saw with the trap set and several of our students, I said, my gosh, there's a drum corps line right there. These kids have the talent. So it's building upon what we have and going to the next level. When he told me about Mr. Finley, that was pretty amazing. He would do a design for $2,000. So, people are willing to give of their time, and you yourself and your background in music also. So I think this is something that we need to look at. I'd like to come back with a more defined and definite things to expand upon and start, because it all really comes down to money, and we won't get into money and budget talk here tonight. But I can tell you, as far as the band boosters and building upon growing a band program, it takes 3 to 5 years to grow a quality band program. I've been there, done that.
Yeah.
So I just would like to come back. I just want to say thank you, Rich,
No,
for the time
absolutely.
you spent in regards about this and the vision and where I think that we can go. Because we definitely have the talent. It's here. And we have enough children that could definitely be involved. It really starts in the elementary and middle school. You don't lose them. What is happening? We are losing kids at the 8th grade, and they're not signing up for high school band. And it's for multiple reasons. But it's just something we've got to work on that, and also growing the program and growing a lower brass program. We have a very good middle school band, but we didn't have any lower brass. And after talking to the music teacher and looking at her resume, this person was an incredible trombone player. So, she's
lower brass
addressing
right
it.
there. Yeah.
Yes, tremendous, tremendous. So I just want to say the talent is here. It's how we go about taking it to the next level.
Very cool.
Yep.
I just have one thing.
Anybody?
Yes.
Can you talk, or I could call or find out from Floyd how we would go about if we did go through GoFundMe or something like that? What's the proper channels to get that specifically to the band? I know we always make a motion to direct the superintendent, but with adding that other layer to it, I just want to make sure.
Yeah, we
that do
definitely
that
have
right.
to go to Attorney Floyd.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yes.
I would recommend versus going to GoFundMe, you would want to use Valley Community Foundation to set up a fund. That way, the GoFundMe doesn't take some off the top. Valley Community Foundation, they would invest the money, and actually, it would actually be an income-producing account over time. They manage all of our scholarship accounts.
That could work well, too. Excellent suggestion, Mr. Ford.
Yeah, I mean, any vehicle essentially to serve as the, fundraising medium here, so to speak. I mean, that's, whatever, it's gonna be the best decision, for the need for this. I just suggested GoFundMe because, I know Donors Choose is one that doesn't have a lot of stuff, but if there's other options, I mean, that's great, especially one that's gonna give us a return on what we put in there. It's perfect. Any other
Could you
questions?
send the PowerPoint to us so we could share it with the board? If you could send the presentation?
Sure, I can email it all out
Yeah,
to everybody,
send it to-
which will be fine. Yes?
Through the chair, just a couple things, Mr. Demko. First of all, thank you very much. There's been a lot of research, but I have to be really honest. You kind of lost me at, there hasn't been a lot of interest in this in the past. I've been on this board for 10 years. There has always been interest in expanding our music program, always. But as you very well know, every year we fight for the bare minimum. Every year we fight to make sure that we retain the programs we currently have. There has never been room in our budget to expand programs. What you laid out based on donations, great. But I think we all know that a solid music program needs to start in the elementary school. So until we have enough instruments to fund any student that wants to learn how to play an instrument, I'm not quite sure how many students we would get interested at the high school level. We need to start this young. It needs to be started early. Right now, we have no money to buy any instruments for any elementary school student. We immediately block students out of participating in a music program because they have to buy or rent their own equipment. So until our schools are properly funded, please, please, please don't assume that you know what this board is interested in doing for the students and families of Seymour.
Very good. With all due respect, I'm not here to talk about the budget tonight.
Everything is about the budget. That's what we all fail to understand. Everything is about the budget because we cannot operate and offer services if the financial foundation is not there.
Fair enough. Anybody else?
You're not in charge of this meeting, our board chair is.
Anything else from Mr. Demko?
I'm good. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you.
All right, thank you. Excellent,
I'm sure
thanks.
Dr. Compton will
All right.
work
Yes.
on the next steps.
Yes, absolutely. Talk about the elementary and the middle school programs and high school and what we currently have and what the.
All right, moving on, item 8C, the Dawn Renewals.
I'll make a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to non-renew 4 non-tenured teachers, Larry Dublin, Jennifer Fodor, Taylor Queen, and Jack Rocco, at the end of the 21-22 school year in accordance with the provisions of the Connecticut General Statute, Section 10-151. I further move that the superintendent be directed to communicate this action of the board in writing to Larry Dublin, Jennifer Fodor, Taylor Queen, and Jack Rocco, and that the superintendent of schools be authorized to respond on behalf of the board to any request, if required by law, or for other data which may be forthcoming from the teacher and/or his/her representative pursuant to applicable provisions of the Connecticut General State Statutes 10-151.
I second that motion.
Motion by Ed, second by Kristen. Any discussion, questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, carries 7-0. Item 8C, item B, the administrators.
I will make a motion to accept the recommendation of the superintendent to non-review Megan Poganelski, Assistant Director of Pupil Services, at the end of her current contract, June 30th, 2022.
I'll second that motion.
Got the reverse. Motion by Kristen, second by Ed. Any discussion? Questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Carries 7-0.
I would would just like to note for the record that none of these non-renewals are based upon performance. These people have done an outstanding job, all of them. It's just due to the ESSER funds and grants and our current budget situation, but mainly because of the grants in both areas. So we're just uncertain of monies and where we're at. So thank you. In regards, it's just, like I said, not related to performance at all.
Okay. Next up, we have the Sacred Heart University Internship Program. You gonna speak on that one?
Yes, Mrs. Tenza has been working on that. We think basically this is a good program where we can get interns for around 14,000. We think it's a win-win if we don't go ahead and contract with these young potential educators, and we will lose them. I think it's the best step for us to go with Sacred Heart University at this time. They can also do substitute work. So, Ms. Tenza, would you comment further? Because you've worked with coordinating this.
Right. The board who have been with us in the past may remember that we have had interns in the past. They became part of the budget, and a few years ago they were eliminated as a cost savings. What we realize is that they serve as a substitute, so we really weren't saving any money. And it is a mutually beneficial partnership with young people who are working in education and, helping us by getting a variety of experiences in different classrooms and different situations. So we would aim to provide one for each building.
Just total of 4.
They have to pick us, though.
Sacred Heart has to pick us, or the
interns.
interns?
The interns have to.
It's an interviewee mutually
Oh, gotcha.
agreed upon.
Any questions?
But I noticed that Sacred Heart does require them to student teach during their working time, correct? That's what I just read.
It is in there. We have in the past with almost all of the universities worked to have that occur outside of. We have assured them
Outside
at
of the
the
year
end
that
of,
we have them,
at the end of the experience, we've promised that we will take them as a student teacher.
oh, okay.
So we haven't had those conversations yet because it needed to go through the board.
Okay.
But that definitely needs to
That
happen.
conversation
Right,
has
They
because
been.
that's
definitely
a-
need to
you know,
have
'cause
student
that's an
teaching
important issue,
afterwards.
because
Yes,
we're
it
paying
is.
that, and if we're
Yes,
gonna
it
lose
is.
them for 10 weeks, we don't
Correct.
have a substitute. But
Correct.
if we could convince them to do it after they do our intern, okay, that,
Yeah, with that stipulation.
because I know different colleges do it.
Correct.
Different ways and different
Correct.
programs, but they definitely, if they come here and do this, they need to commit student teaching.
But I found during my tenure as an administrator, having interns that are committed to a building works way better than, and I don't want to make this sound like I don't like our substitutes that we have, but an intern in a building is a more consistent for the children, because they can follow up on a thing if they're substituted and something happens, they can follow up with the teacher the next day because they're in the building and stuff like that, which is important. And it makes the intern seem more like a teacher.
Yeah, or like a part of the school family, well said.
Thank you. Through the chair, forgive me if I missed this. How did we decide on Sacred Heart University as opposed to, UB or Southern or something like that?
Okay, you want to, because we've used them before?
They reached out to us.
Okay. The only reason I bring it up is because they're quite pricey as a private institution, and there's something appealing about working with a public institution. So I would say just for consideration as we move forward, if we rebuild a program this year, maybe other universities would be open to
Yeah,
also working
reach
with
out and
us.
see what they would have available as well.
Are we locked into having only one?
Well,
Because we
these-
certainly need more than 4 subs.
Well, right, well, this is a start, we can just see what's out there and
They're very
research
hard
it
to find.
further.
They're very hard to find, in fact. You know, these people reached out after the last board meeting, and, you know, there's a slight possibility that some of them may already have accepted a position elsewhere, so.
We at least can try. If you're willing to give them a chance.
And we can definitely look at other institutions.
Through the chair. Yep. Have we in turn reached out to the other universities the way Ms. Armling has mentioned?
Not yet.
Not yet. We
But
have,
but we will.
every year we have until this stopped. So once this conversation heads in the supportive direction, that will be on our list tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll reach out to the other college of ed programs.
Because-
Very good.
Yeah.
Because the other concern, and clarify for me, the other concern I have is they choose us, we don't choose them. I know that when, and again, I can speak from my experience, that didn't always sit well with me, that they're choosing me. What if I don't like them?
Well, sometimes it has to do with the student and where they live.
I-
But yeah,
Well,
that's why it's
okay. Not so much as that they're gonna decide, well, you know, I like Bungay School and I don't like Chetfield School, or
No,
I like the high school or the middle school, and, you know, and they're gonna choose. When we look at them, and we interview them, we say,
We'll work
That's
out
what
the
we-
place.
yeah,
do all
that
that,
this
yes.
person will work better at this school than that person.
Yes.
They reach out and say, we have these people that live in your
Are available.
proximity,
Okay.
yeah, and then
We will arrange where they're most appropriate.
All right, good, good.
Mhm.
No disrespect to the colleges, but I think that should be our decision. Our administrators more than capable of making the proper decision.
I think that this program is a great way to kind of back up the career ladder in terms of as we try to recruit teachers and, you know, anything we can do to, you know, work on that career pathway is great in any of our areas. I also think that, you know, I'd like to ask that we look at this program with an eye on diversity, equity, and inclusion and
Yes.
ensure that we are, you know, supporting that and making sure that our teachers represent our community well. So, thank you.
That's an excellent point. And that's why we're reaching out to, expanding this to state universities and whatever will give us that opportunity to recruit and look at more possibilities. This is just a start. They
It's a great
reached out to us.
That's good. Any other questions? Yeah, okay, go ahead.
There's really not much I can add to what's already been said, but I would agree that an opportunity to grow new educators. And I don't quite take the same view in that we want our students to have agency and to make some choices about what they need for their learning experience. So I would value a candidate that also had some ideas of what experiences they needed to become the best teacher they could be.
Anything else? Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of superintendent to reinstate an internship program in the Seymour Public Schools for this.
I don't think we have to time box it, no. Bring it back.
Yeah, we can.
We could. I'll let you finish speaking, I shouldn't have done that.
Internal joke, sorry. For an internship program in the Seymour schools for this upcoming
School year,
I second that motion.
Okay.
22-23 school year.
A motion by Beth, we have a second by Ms. Harmon. Any discussion? Mrs. Bruno has that face again.
No discussion. I think just for a discussion point, the time boundness is not that we don't support the program, it's just to help us kind of stay organized and make sure that we revisit it every year, so we
Yeah.
understand what's cut and what's not and the like, so.
Yeah.
And I think it talks about for the fall semester, so. Perfect.
All right, any other discussion? Great. Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, passes 7-0. Up next, we have the request for proposal. This was the HVAC RFP we had for Seymour High and Bungay Elementary.
Yes, we've been in discussion with this. Tim is available by phone if need be. He's on vacation. What we'd like to do is to go ahead and get the approval of this. We know there's some revisions that will need to be done, even more, but we'd like to get this moving because it's very crucial. First of all, it is in the ARP ESSER 3 grant, and the largest part of that grant is for the infrastructure and with air filtration and basically with the HVAC being the whole biggest part of that grant, really technically about 80% of that grant. So we feel that it's very important to move forward and get this done. It also ties in specifically with the high school in a way that we can finally complete this project and get everything air conditioned at the high school. The second floor, remaining areas, specifically second floor and also specifically the 1969 wing annex, which will be the board office where we'll be moving to. But it's not about board office, it's about the whole high school and to finally get this completed. When they did the addition and renovation and all that back in 2005, that wasn't completed. So we'd like tonight to get this going, to get it out for bid. However, the next steps, also Bungay was included as a possibility. We can put that out with the option if there's grant money and funds available. So Mr. Connor has put together the RFP proposal. We know that this will have to go out to bid, and any other revisions, Beth worked very diligent with me today as well as last night on the phone in regards with this. So basically, are there any questions? It's basically where we are at this time. We need to utilize and get the air conditioning specifically done for the high school. And if the town or whatever, if there's other funds available for Bungay or what we have, it all depends upon too what these contractors bid the project for.
Looking for a motion?
Yes, sir.
Yep, I'll make a motion that we go out for the HVAC at Seymour High School and Bungay Elementary School. For request for proposal, excuse me.
Second.
Okay. Would you like to revise your motion?
Yeah, Beth, you,
Okay, I will revise my motion to approve the recommendation of the facilities manager to move forward with the RFP for HVAC for Seymour High School and Bungay Elementary School with revisions.
Except the,
Yeah.
okay. I have a motion by Ed, a second by Stefan. Any questions?
My only thought is that, as we look at this RFP, we might not want to limit ourselves just to the high school and Bungay and just, if we're all comfortable with the revisions may need various facilities based on what the needs are of the buildings. I think that's the prudent thing to do, especially the way the RFP is drafted right now. So I don't think we have to change the motion, just be aware those revisions may include evaluating some of the other buildings if necessary. We'll have to coordinate that with the facilities manager.
I completely support that because we have no idea what costs are going to, I'm sure there's some idea, but it's going to be a range. We certainly don't want to leave money on the table, and quite frankly, I'm kind of nervous that there won't be enough money in the grant to do even the one school. So yeah, anxious to get this going.
And just to comment back, so Governor Lamont has also announced some potential funding for this similar type work in schools that he's trying to get passed through the legislature. So it might be other grants available. There's also quite a bit of money out there for building renovations and things like that. So I think we've got to kind of take a look at it and just understand what we have and what we can, actually spend the funds on and the highest priority items.
and we want to make the most out of it. We can at least get going on the high school project and definitely apply for these state grants. And it's just real important that as soon as they're out and are posted, that we go for it.
And this is definitely something that needs to be done. I think looking at the point from equity that we This is something I talked about when I met with the former superintendent before I joined the board. Looking at not having heat days where we have to close schools. I think it's great that there's funds available, and we should go for it.
Also, Mr. Stramello has served on the building committee in regards as well, and realizes the importance to the HVAC. And Mr. Stanek is here as the chair of the building committee. So you all work very diligently in trying to move this forward.
Thank you. I have a question. Is there a time limit in which we have to have the money spent? Or is it enough to have everything locked in place?
Well,
the project takes 2 years, et
Well,
cetera.
hopefully the project won't take 2 years, but the money has to be spent by 2024. So we want to expedite because prices are going to continue to go up.
Well,
Right, and
Maybe.
the RFP is just for that, getting a price tag.
Yes.
You know, we're
Yes,
gonna
and
pay
moving
for that
forward
at least
and
through
implement- Yes,
the
yes,
RFP.
sir, correct, yes. And it starts with the high school, and then we have funds available for Bungay and do what we can.
And if I
And
remember
fundraise.
right, and Mr. Stanek could back it up, I thought Mr. Connors said that it was doable within the time frame before the beginning of the next school year, at least for the high school.
If you go out and get this
And
rolling
get
soon.
that.
Yes. And-
Correct, Mr. Stan? I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Rick.
Yes, that is what Mr. Connors indicated, yes.
All right, any other questions? Do we have a deadline, do you know, for the RFP?
We'll come back.
No,
with
okay,
that.
all right.
That will be spelled out.
Okay. That's why we made the motion.
Right, with the
That's why
revisions.
I was staring at her.
That's right.
All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, abstained, passes 7-0. Next up, we have RFP for an athletic trainer.
Yes. This was a recommendation with our athletic committee, which Mr. Stramello is chair of this, and I think this is important.
Yep. I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Athletic and Health Committee to approve the creation of a RFP for the hiring of an athletic trainer for the 2022-2023 school year.
Motion by Ed. Do I have a second? Second by Mrs. Bruno. Any questions?
Would you do some clarification is that we're not indicating that we're displeased with the present athletic training, but we just want to go up to bid to see if there is, because there's a question if we may run out of money prior to the end of the season. That would be unfair to the spring athletes, because as Ms. Harmon said earlier, everything based on money and the budget support. So that's why we're going out to bid, just to see.
I have a quick question. I've lost track if we have an independent contract with an individual or if we have a contract with a service.
It's with the service, it's with the company.
Okay, thank you.
And like I said,
Going after the-
they've
for
done a good
athletic
job.
services.
It's just good business sometimes to just go out
Right.
there and just see the same company maybe re-awarded the contract. But I thought it was a good suggestion from the athletic board committee to do that.
Anything else? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Beth is out. 6-0. Okay, item letter F, sorry. We have a couple donations we need to take action.
I'll go for it.
Go for it.
I'd like to, a little bit different than what we've done in the past, but I don't ever know why we did it the way we did in the past, so I'm just gonna go for it. I'd like to make a motion to accept with gratitude the donation from the Cornett family of 4 Edward Road, Seymour, who is donating $30,000 5 books to the Chatfield and Presty School.
Second.
Okay, motion by Kristen and second by Stefan. Any discussion?
I always thought that through our board policy, we need to designate the superintendent to decide where the donation goes.
That is
And
correct.
in most cases, the superintendent would honor the request of the donating family. But I think our board policy indicates that we have to direct the superintendent to designate where the donation goes. I don't know if I have a copy of that.
That's
I
exactly
think
why I
that's how
said I
it's-
would just
yeah.
go for it, because I knew that would come up, but I just didn't have the wherewithal in me to get all those words out.
Well, thank you.
Would you like to amend your motion?
I will amend my motion. Look at that, is that at me? Quick. I'd like to make a motion to accept the donation from the Cornett family of 4 Edwards Road, and direct the superintendent to place the donation as she feels appropriate.
I amend mine.
Okay. Motion by Kristen, second by Stefan. All those in favor of the amended motion? Motion carries 6-0. Any discussion on the newly amended motion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
I'm already looking ahead to the next one. That's a real tricky one.
That's what I was.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. Okay, we have another donation. Item 2.
Come on, somebody else
I-
besides Kristen
No,
and I can make
no,
motion
no,
to,
no,
come on.
I
Go ahead.
would like to make a motion to accept the donation in the amount of $1,003.83 donated by Dr. Susan Compton, our superintendent of schools, and suggest it be used as she sees fit.
Motion by Kristen. Do I
I
have a
will
second?
second that.
Second by Ed. Can we just, another legal thing, just run that by Floyd, just to make sure we could do this?
Okay.
I don't see why we couldn't, but
I've
having,
donated in the past. I actually, not here, but in
Connecticut's
another
crazy,
state.
don't
I
forget.
actually donated a stipend for a Odyssey of the Mind team. To have a teacher to be, as a donation.
Nice, it's a very specific amount.
you take the words out of my
Yeah,
mouth.
let me specifically say why a check was donated back. I paid for the actual RFP advertisement with my credit card, and that's why the one amount was, that was $100, so the other is donation. Okay? So I'll check with Floyd to make sure everything is.
I'm sure it's fine. I
Yes.
just, you know.
Yes, they're starting, this will be the first year for the Alumni Hall of Fame. It's a way to get it off the ground. The Athletic Hall of Fame has done such a great job, and they're having that banquet April the 30th, but this is to get the first group off the ground and running. I think it's so important to recognize your alumni and the tradition of Seymour.
Thank you.
That's the reason I'm doing it, because they had no funds. They're just starting up.
All right. Anything else? Questions, comments? All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 6-0.
I
Kristen and Ed, all the actions down this side of the table tonight. And you too, I'm sorry. Okay, next up is the graduation date for the class of 2022.
You want to go ahead?
I'll make the motion.
Yes.
So I'll make a motion to set the graduation date for the class of 2022 as June 21st, 2022.
And then the last day of school.
So that on the calendar that we received, the rain date was also the 21st.
Actually, the rain date will be the 22nd on the Wednesday. Mr. Freud and I discussed that it would like to set the graduation, as you said, the 21st, and then the rain day would be the 22nd. And that's the official last day of school. With the calendar, we missed 5 snow days. So that is where that puts us at the end of the calendar. Also, there was a revised date with a parent conference for the elementary kids. It will be this coming Wednesday, April the 6th, because in March, on that one date, it was March the 9th, we had snow. So complicated the afternoon.
So I have a motion by Mrs. Bruno to approve the date of graduation for class of 22 as 21st of June, 2022, with a rain date of June 22nd, 2022. Do I have a second? Second by Beth. Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am.
Are we sure on these dates? This date has moved a couple times in the different revisions we've seen. Previously, the last day of school was marked as June 21st. So I just want to make sure we're
Right. We
ready.
counted today.
Okay.
We've been in parish school, and we totally solidified. Mr. Floyd, you want to talk about that?
We had about 6 people verified.
Yeah, we did. We had Mr. Floyd,
I was hoping that we don't get
Secretary,
people
Bond and
snowstorm
myself.
because that would be
Or a
horrible.
May tornado.
Right. So right now, for us, it's very important to set the date so that we could make sure we get the staging and the furniture necessary to run graduation. Because we use field-specific chairs for a turf field, there's other schools that are trying to get the same equipment as we are, so the sooner we lock up the date, lock up the order, the better. Otherwise, we might not have turf-safe chairs for graduation. What's different also, because kind of as a result of what happened last year, is that on the day of graduation, the 8th grade will be promoted earlier in the day at 2 o'clock, and we're going to have at 6 o'clock graduation. So they're having a whole ceremony set up to do it by school. And that's why we need to do it the day before the last day, but then the last day becomes the
Thank you, Mr. Floyd. It's been a long day, but we've counted the days thoroughly.
All right, anything else? Now look again. You good? Okay. All right, hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, carries 7-0. All right, last day of school. You're on a roll.
I will make a motion to set the last day of school for the 21-22 school year as June 22nd, 2022.
All right, motion by Mrs. Bruno, second by Mrs. Harmon. Any discussion? Beth?
Sorry, the calendar is dated my existence. There's still typos in the calendar, so before you publish, I would ask that we take off the reference that school ends on June 15th.
Yes, from the old calendar. Yes.
Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed, abstentions, 7-0. We have an item for possible consideration to add to the agenda. It only seems right that Mrs. Steele, you go ahead and make that.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised calendar with the addition of a half-day for parent conferences on April 6th, 2022, as well as the correction to the notes in June.
I need a motion to add it to the agenda first, I'm sorry. It's not on the,
I'll make a motion
Right.
to add to the agenda the review of the revised school calendar.
motion by Beth, second by Stefan. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 6-0.
I'll make a motion to approve the revised 2021-22 school calendar with the addition of a half-day on the parent conferences on April 6th, 2022, as well as the revisions to the notes in June.
Motion by Beth. Do I have a second? Second by Stefan. Any discussion?
Seem to remember the last time we discussed the calendar, there was some debate around the language, whether we're using half-day, whether we're using early dismissal, whether we're using, there was another term.
Abbreviated day.
Yeah.
Abbreviated day, and I like to call it early release day. That's where I would like to go with the new calendar. And actually, we put that on there because the surrounding districts do early release days. And I did put early release day / abbreviated day. So that, Mr. Garofalo would be pleased about that.
Okay.
It's good. It was a better change.
Yeah, I agree. Any other discussion? Anything from you? No, I'm okay. All right, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Passes 7-0. Okay. Item 9, we have correspondence. Power School renewal letter. Thank you letters that have gone out to the police commissioners and the first select woman. It's item 10, Board of Ed comment, superintendent reports. It's late, I don't have anything. I'm not going to keep you guys here any longer. Any board members have comments? Besides the fact that Thursday is the budget hearing. Please spread the word. That's all. I'm going to echo Mrs. Harlan's comments at the Board of Finance. We need everybody to come out in support of what our revised budget is, the 5.3. Anything less than that is going to put a lot of tough decisions on all of us, and it'll be a tough 2 months. So everybody and anybody can come, except for I believe Dr. Collins.
Yeah, am I allowed to?
I
We
think
won't
you- I
discuss
think you
that.
can come.
You can come, you can't
You
speak.
can't speak.
Okay.
All right.
Even though she's a resident.
That's a good point.
Yeah, because I was superintendent.
She certainly could if she's a resident.
Add that to the third thing.
You don't even have
You're
to say-
probably done talking about it.
You don't even have to say anything explicitly about the school budget. You could say you can get creative. What are they gonna do? Throw you out?
Fish out of the
I believe, and there's a state statute.
Statutes, that superintendent.
That superintendents can't speak to the budget.
Because it impacts their salaries, Stefan.
There's a lot of people that live in, there's a lot of people that live in this town that have salaries from the town.
Excuse me?
There's a lot of people that live in town that have salaries from the town. Does it apply to everybody? There's a lot of town residents who get paid by the
But I
town.
think
Does
it's
it apply to
because
everybody?
she's the one that recommends it to
Right.
us to start with. But
Okay.
you should add that as an item to maybe ask Floyd too.
I'll just get clarification
Yeah.
from the attorney. But Mr. Cervello has trained me well about that situation. I would be very careful.
All right, it's 9:30. Stefan, any comments?
No, I've said enough.
Shannon? Ms. Bruno?
I think I said everything I need to say.
You sure? Any more calendar stuff, anything? Or anything generous? No? Ed?
Just a quick fill in, the committee that the first select woman set up, that I sit on, and Mr. Stan's the chair, on relocating the Board of Ed, has been moving smoothly. We've had input from both Rich Kearns, from Rob Dyer, the last one, from the police chief, to make sure there's any security issues and stuff like that, and moving and setting up the cameras and all that kind of stuff for the extra security and stuff. And I was been told that technically, if we want to say, we've been evicted from Bank Street.
We get a term. Is there any money we can get for being evicted?
That, I mean, when I heard that the other night, I said, oh my God, we're evicted from the building.
I will be super quick, just to build on and make sure that the public is aware that the hearing will be at 6 o'clock at Town Hall on this is our opportunity to speak as a community and ask for our budget, as we desired it to be, is reinstated and let it go to vote as the Board of Education has talked over and over and over again and looked at numbers. This is what we need. It hurts me to read in minutes that it was referred to as a wish list budget by the Board of Finance, because we have done everything we can to prove that it is anything but a wish list budget.
I agree. And I believe I showed Sal some rough numbers. The 5.3 leaves us with $270 of a buffer.
That's quite a wish list.
It's quite a wish list.
Do you,
And that's just doing the math from what is in the accounts.
since my esteemed superintendent isn't going to be allowed to speak, I'm assuming I'm going to be able to say less.
You can't say. No, you can't.
You should.
Okay.
None of us can.
I just, very quick, I also just want to say a public thank you to the teachers who have decided to coach outdoor field and track, because that is tremendous and awesome. And I want to also express disappointment that we are losing a nurse, and everybody makes decisions based on what they need, and this person might be going on to wonderful things. It just so saddens me that we are losing one of our nurses at Chatfield or Preston schools, because I think that's not an uncommon occurrence. That's it.
Dr. Compton, you're on deck.
Okay, I want to be very brief because I don't want to keep you much longer. I would just like to mention that I attended the swearing-in ceremony of our new chief of police, and also got to see Officer Dempsey promoted to detective with that swearing-in ceremony, and some others. It was just a really nice ceremony, so I know the chief, it was just really good to be there for him and his family. I want to mention that we have scheduled for next Tuesday, April the 12th, at 6 o'clock at the board office, a facility/transportation board committee meeting at all possible 6 o'clock. Been in touch with All-Star, and that's one of the topics for discussion, and one representative will be there for the meeting, and also their supervisor will be available by phone. So we think that's going to turn into a really good working meeting. Again, with Nick Caruso, we would like to schedule him to do the second retreat in May. We've been so busy for March and April with the amount of meetings that you've had February, March, and whatever. It was just too much. So he has dates available in May. I'll send those to you. I would also like to mention that Seymour Middle School, I was able to attend their recognition earlier the week of students who had written basically 4 essays. 2 of those essays won on a state level, so we'll be bringing those children for special recognition at board meeting. So it was just very well attended. They had a school assembly, Mrs. Jensen and I were present, and the kids just done a great job. So I just wanted to mention that. Also, I attended for half the meeting, as well as Mr. Floyd, in regards with the building committee that was held this past Thursday. So that's all I have to say this evening. Thank you for your support of the agenda. This has been trying times, but we will prevail. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Compton?
Just one.
Yeah.
Since Officer Dempsey was promoted, then you're going to be involved in the new school resource officer?
I assume, yes, I would hope so.
Well,
And I will check on that, because you
yeah,
reminded me
but
that. Yes.
I would make sure that you
Have to need to be.
insist
Yes,
that
I'm
you're
gonna be-
involved in that.
absolutely.
Because that's the way it was written in law,
Well, that's how we're going to
that
follow.
the decision for the school resource officer is both chosen by the police chief and the
And the
superintendent of schools.
Well, that's what we'll
Not just
carry
the
out.
police chief.
That's what we'll carry
No
out.
disrespect.
Yeah, that's what we'll carry out. Okay, thank you.
All right, anyone else? Okay, a couple pieces of information, activities recognition, some hirings. We have 3 resignations, certified staff to non-certified. Are we posting for them?
Right now, we are working on, there's some permanent subs that are going to be filling one position. So we're trying to work something out internally. If not, then we will, the sema is just for the rest of the year. I just want to say that congratulations to Kyle Mulaney. He's going to be going to a school district to be a dean of students at a middle school. It's his first opportunity for administration job, so we're proud of that, and he appreciates deeply all the support that he's had here at Seymour. And who knows, someday he may return when there's future openings in administration. So, and the other gentleman, Mr. Shelton, is getting a job that's, as I said, right in his neighborhood. In regards with the nurse, I don't know all of the reasons in regards with that.
All right, and that takes us to the end.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion by Ed, do I have a second?